You're a long way away there, aren't you? That's probably good, because this is the first time I've talked to a camera. It feels weird. It feels like the camera's staring at me. It's not as bad as talking in front of a class though, so that's a win. Anyway, what's this video about? Well, at the start of the year, I moved to Canberra to start studying my masters. So this video is about that. It's about the things that I've done and all the stuff I've learnt as a part of that. So why am I making this? Partly because I think it'll be cool to look back on and see what's different, what's changed, what I learnt, what I've forgotten. I think it'll also be good to help me remember the things that I have learnt, which will be useful. And finally, maybe some people will find it interesting, but that's honestly just kind of a bonus. So I guess let's get into it. Part 1. So like I said, at the start of the year, I moved to Canberra. It was about 5 months ago now. I moved from Sydney, which I've been for like 6 years on and off. It's been a pretty big change. I think the biggest, it's a lot colder. It's a lot colder in winter, and it's currently winter, so that's kind of the front of mind thing at the moment. The houses not designed for the cold for some reason. The house, it's always colder inside the house than outside the house. But it's also nice. The autumn was really pretty. I was kind of expecting that, or hoping for that, I guess. Canberra was one of the areas that I'd heard about having nice autumn stuff. And the trees were all super lovely. And it's just nice being in a place where there's more trees around, and going through them when they're all orange is super cool. Especially down by the lake, that's really nice. When they're all turn orange and you got the lake and the sun's out, and yeah, that's really nice. It was hot at the start of the year as well, but that's more normal. I can deal with that. In general though, it's different. It's smaller. I miss the city of Sydney, the CBD. It feels smaller here, but I do like being close to the mountains, and I do want to explore that more. It's been lonely at times, kind of uprooting from my friend group and moving down here, but I have had friends here, and it's been really helpful. And it's been fun trying to make new friends. At times, not the most successfully. It's definitely not my strong suit, but I think we're getting there, and hopefully that'll get more and more. Definitely, it feels like I'm meeting more of the same people at uni this time around, which is cool. So what have I done? I've been to a bunch of exhibitions. I've been to a bunch of museums and galleries, some really cool ones. Went to the Portrait Gallery. I went to the National Museum. I've been to some others as well. It's really cool going to these places, which I've been to long ago as a kid on school excursions and things, but coming back to them now as an adult and appreciating them more and seeing them differently, I guess. It's been really fun. I've been up Black Mountain. That was cool. It gives a good view, and that was really nice in autumn. That was one of the really nice things in autumn. I've been to the Arboretum a couple of times. It's one of my favourite places. I'm so keen for the trees to grow more as well. But even at the moment, they just look so cool. Just trees everywhere, and yeah, looking out over it. And it's a really cool building as well. A bunch of cool buildings and gardens there. Really cool place. I've been playing some frisbee. That's been really cool. Something I've kind of done a little bit just for fun before, but doing it like properly and doing training and stuff has been really fun. I really miss doing sport training. It was kind of my favourite part of sport growing up, so that's been cool. I've eaten some cool food, been to some markets and things. The markets are different here. They have like more permanent markets that are like just kind of fresh food, but set up kind of like market vibes. You can just visit anytime. It's just kind of a bunch of shops together. whereas they have less of the weekend markets, I guess, where you'll set up a bunch of stalls just for a morning or whatever. There's a lot of those in Sydney. I think that's about all I've done for now. It definitely isn't all I've done. I've definitely forgotten things, but that's okay. I think that'll do for now. So, for now, let's go to part 2. Like I said, at the start of the year, I started my Masters at ANU. I'm doing a Masters of Archaeological and Evolutionary Science, which is a real mouthful every time someone asks me. But it's really cool. It's a coursework Masters, so I'm doing classes, which is fun. I really missed studying. Basically, I'm really keen to get into like the climate and environment side of archaeology. That's where hopefully I'm headed, but we'll wait and see. I took 2 courses this semester. The first one was an introduction to archaeological and evolutionary science, so kind of like an intro to the Masters. It was really cool. Both courses were really cool. The other one was European prehistory. So the first one was a big overview of a whole lot of stuff that was just really helpful to know at the start of the degree. Like, there's a bunch of stats, a bunch of guest lectures about different topics in the field, a bunch of readings on different areas, a little bit of coding and things. I really enjoyed it because it's kind of a little bit stuff that I did in my undergrad with stats and the more sciencey side of things. I was one of the few that had not come from an archaeology undergrad, but a science undergrad, so it was interesting to see kind of the mix. It was really cool, kind of the different things we all knew. I'll tell you kind of just like the big thing that I took away from each course, I guess. So for that one, the big thing was like the ways that we should be doing stats better. So one of the things we talked about a lot was kind of a big reliance on p-values and statistics over the since their introduction in the 60s? No, way earlier than that. Since their introduction in the early 1900s, I think. Don't quote me on that. But basically, for a long time, we really held fast to, if something brings you a p-value of less than 0.05, then you deem it as significant and then it's a worthy result. But it's actually a really terrible way of looking at it because it's so dichotomous, and it doesn't actually tell you a lot of things like the actual size of the effect that you might want to be measuring. It just tells you. It's also a really confusing way of doing things. Like, it's explaining p-values themselves is very painful because you kind of have to do it in a roundabout way because of the way null hypothesis testing works. So basically, a lot of the course was how can we do better than that? So looking at things like confidence intervals and means rather than p-values and significance testing. The other big thing we did was looking at meta-analysis and just how that's a really good way of bringing in a lot of research into one thing and how to do that numerically in an effective way. I'll put some papers that are useful to read, or I found useful, below if you want to look at them more. This is definitely not intended to be a highly credible source for you to base views on, but maybe it'll be an interesting introduction for you for some things. interesting thing is a lot of fields have already moved away from this. So medical science, medicine, was one of the early ones to move away from just relying on significance testing and p-values. But archaeology has taken a lot longer, and it hasn't been till like kind of the 2000s where they've started looking at moving away from that properly, and it's still very much a slow process. It's interesting, one of the other disciplines that's been really slow is ecology, and that was my undergrad, so it's kind of the stuff I learned as well. So it was kind of looking at stats in a new way for me, which was very helpful. So that was that course. So the other course I did, Introduction to European Prehistory, or just European Prehistory, one of the two. Basically, it was looking at everything from beginning of people in Europe up until like just before the Greek and Roman period. It was super interesting. It's not an area of history I've looked at a lot. European history isn't something that I've ever hugely delved into, but it was very cool. Each week we'd kind of move along in time and to a different area. I guess kind of some of the big things we took away from it were like things were different in different places and progressed differently, and it's very much not a linear process of hunter-gatherer, forager societies then become farming societies and so on and so forth, but there's lots of like interplay between the two. It's not taken up the same everywhere, and it's the same with all the technologies. Like they don't always come at the same rate or in the same order, or even at all in some places. So you get very different looking societies in very different places, but you still get a lot of connections between them because everything's so close, which is really cool. Part of the course we did, the major assignments were all kind of based on this one big research project. So you kind of chose a topic from the course and got to do your own research on that, which was really, really cool. So the topic I was looking at was one that I had to lead a discussion for that I found super interesting, which was looking at these early Ukrainian megasites and the idea of like urbanism itself and what defines urbanism and what is a city. And it really kind of reshaped my views of that and how we think about that. Because for a long time, like the earliest cities have been kind of put in Mesopotamia, Uruk, that sort of thing. But these megasites are like contemporaneous or slightly earlier, but they just look so different that they've been discounted for a long time. A lot of people aren't willing to call them urban, despite them being like massive and home to lots of people. But because they are really different, so there's like one of the super interesting things is that there's no clear signs of a really strict hierarchy. So it's they're very flat, seemingly flat settlements, and there's also like questions about how constant the habitation was, whether these were habited by everyone all year round or if it was more seasonal than that. And one of the other things is like how, because there's kind of less environmental impact around the area than would be expected for a site of these size. So in general, it just looks very different to other early versions of urban places. But the thing I was, kind of thought about a lot was what our definition of urban is and where that comes from and what makes it valid. Because obviously things that are urban look completely different in different places. Something that's urban modern day will be completely different from something back then, and even now in different places it'll look different. And a lot of the early definitions had very strict criteria. There's a very classic paper by Gordon Childe that kind of looks at what gives you 10 criteria for what a settlement, what an urban settlement is. And that's kind of slowly progressed and changed over time because we're seeing more and more things that contradict that, but seem like they should be classified as urban. And one of the really interesting ones that I think has made a lot of sense to me, it was put forward by Bisserka Gaydarska, who's done a lot of work on these Ukrainian Megasites, and basically looked at what role these sites played as a part of the wider society that they were in. So what role they played compared to the smaller settlements and, the other parts of the society. And basically comparing the difference in scales and life ways from these smaller places to these really big megasites. And still looking at a bunch of kind of useful criteria. So still looking at things like size and how many trade connections they had and how wide an area they serviced and that sort of thing. But looking at it more in relation to these other things rather than a strict, it has to have this many people for it to be classified as a city, and it has to have this sort of hierarchy to be classified as a city, and it has to do this and this and this. This is a much more fluid and kind of site and society dependent way of doing it, and that made a lot of sense to me. Again, I'll put some links to these papers if you want to read more about them, and it's really interesting. There's a lot of cool research being done. It's a really fascinating area. So that's about all. Well, it's definitely not all the things I learned, but it's a good overview. I think that's the main things I learned, the big picture stuff. So I guess that's kind of the end of the video. Hopefully someone found it interesting. If not, that's okay too. It's fun making it. I was thinking it'd be cool to do these more regularly, but I don't think time will permit that. So we'll see how we go. Tell me what you think. Anything else you want to hear about? It's been fun talking to the camera. I think I'm keen to do more of it, so we'll see how we go. But anyway, that's all for now, and I'll see you next time.